My name is Simon Haigh, and I'm joined by Henry Wang. This is the fifth episode, Henry, and we're both really looking forward to this one. It's great to be here with you again.
Yes, thank you, Simon. It's great to be here, and it is great to be here with Gillian and with Peter. And overcoming COVID has incurred unprecedented human and economic costs globally. Unlike prior economic crises, which were normally caused by financial bubbles or monetary policies, the current crisis is a global health pandemic with serious economic impact and supply chain failures. Experts have warned that this isn't just a temporary hiccup, but it's a serious wake-up call for something more serious. However, there are many calls for fast recovery and return to business as usual with quick fixes. However, there are also many strong drive from global leaders with longer-term visions to build back better with sustainable improvement. A good example is the recent call by G20, B20, United Nations, and the World Economic Forum on building back better post-COVID with international collaborations.
Thanks, Henry. So geopolitically, this crisis has, from a medical research perspective at least, underlined the huge value of global collaboration. We're witnessing the development and adaptation of life-saving technologies and massive research into treatments. We're experiencing perhaps not seen before, at least since the AIDS crisis of the 80s, sharing of scientific journals, genome sequencing data, and clinical trials, bringing together thousands of scientists, medics, companies, and researchers together globally to facilitate greater international collaboration and understanding. Henry and I are both conducting a series of podcasts with distinguished international thought leaders from both the East and the West. These thought leaders are discussing key topical issues, including healthcare, youth, innovation, climate, leadership, culture, and in this episode, media and the arts. We hope that these open exchanges of views with international thought leaders from the West and the East should help foster greater international understanding and collaboration. And we're delighted that all episodes will be featured on all leading podcast channels, YouTube, social media, and more.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome again, Gillian and Peter. It's a great honor for us to have you both joining us in this podcast. Well, Gillian, it's wonderful that you can join us from your very busy schedule, being the provost of the Hong Kong Academy of Performing Art, which is a very famous institution in Hong Kong and in Asia and globally. Can you give us an overview of your impressive career and what are your main activities?
Oh, well, my career is actually, I started as a theatre designer, actually, and also film design as well. So I used to be a freelance artist before I joined the academy, and that was 23 years ago. And my intention originally was staying for a few years, but somehow, I got stuck. I'm still there, and I'm the provost now. And so it's been great, getting involved with performing arts. It's a passion of mine, and it will always be. And of course, now it's about running the academic programs of the academy. And I don't really have time to design, unfortunately. I mean, I do have the itch from time to time, but I always say when I retire one day, maybe I'll go back to it. So basically, what I do now is, of course, looking after all the academic affairs of the academy and the running of it. And so, it's a very busy place. The Academy for Performing Arts in Hong Kong actually has 6 schools. We have dance, drama, music, film and television, theatre and entertainment arts, which is basically production, and Chinese opera, Cantonese opera, actually. So we basically have everything, you know, everything you can under the sun you can think of, which is performing arts, and we teach. We run post-secondary programs. We have degree programs, BFA actually, and BMUS, and also a master's program, MFA and MUS. So we're a busy place. We're busy bees at the moment.
Wow, that's really impressive. And it's wonderful that you can do something that you are really committed to as well. And how has COVID affected performing art in Hong Kong and Asia? And how do you see their recovery post-COVID?
Well, it's actually affected us a lot. Certainly as a school, it's like any school, you know, we back in February, March, you know, we have to make a decision to think of how we put everything online. And of course, with performing arts, it's quite difficult. You know, there are things that can go online, and there are other things which are, you know, basically the practice elements, which can be very, very difficult. And when it comes to you know, stage productions, of course, you can't. You have to get together. You've got to be on stage. You've got to rehearse. And if you're an actor, you've got to be on stage. You can't do that online, you know, at home, you know, by yourself. So the academic side of it has been quite difficult for us. So we've been going online, trying to go face to face, going online, face to face. So whenever, you know, we react to the government regulations, you know, when another wave comes along, then of course we have to shut down again. So it's been like that for the past, well, since March, really. But of course, if you look at the industry itself, you know, it's devastating because basically all the venues had to close for a very long time. And when the venues close, it means that particularly the freelance artists have been suffering terribly, because, you know, with freelance artists, if a show cancels, you just don't get paid, and that's how it is. So a lot of young people, particularly, are really suffering. I mean, I've heard stories of how they basically have to make ends meet, and they have to, you know, somebody told me, I think it was yesterday, that one of our you know, one of the artists actually had to get a job cleaning buses, basically, you know, and things like that, you know, just to make ends meet, just to have a meal a day, basically. And there's no end to it. And of course now, you know, we are in Hong Kong, we are coming back a little bit. The venues are open for the time being, but it's with 50% capacity. So at least some of the companies, they can recover a little bit, but we don't know when it might shut down again. So it's not a good picture for everyone, you know.
No, thank you very much, Gillian, for sharing that. And that really is a very, very concerning picture. And we all hope that we can recover from COVID quickly. Looking ahead, how do you see the performing art institutions in Asia seizing the initiative for change through international collaborations?
Well, I think with everything, I always believe that, you know, challenges come with opportunities. So I think a while back in February and March, you know, many of us didn't think that we could even go online. You know, how do you do Zoom? You know, how do you get through the day? You know, and it's so difficult. And some people could hardly, you know, switch on their computer, and suddenly, you know, they have to teach online or something. And it hasn't been easy, but now, you know, months later, everybody is an expert. You know, we're doing this every day, and nobody, you know, think that, you know, there's any problem with it anymore. So then we're thinking, you know, we have conferences, we have Congress, you know, here and there, and suddenly nobody has to travel anymore because you can't travel. So in fact, it saves time, it saves money, and it's better for the environment that we're not flying around, 10 times a year or 100 times a year for some people. So in a way, there is something positive that came out of it. And of course, it means that we are better linked as well. I wouldn't have met Simon, I wouldn't have met Peter, for instance, if it wasn't for doing this. And last year, you would have perhaps invited us to wherever you are, and we have to think of getting away from our work, and finding schedules and everything. But now, we could sit at home and we can do this and have a very good conversation. So I think there is something positive, and it means our lives are changing. It is the new normal, and the new normal can be exciting too. And we see in the performing arts, certainly, there are shows, of course, they were free at the beginning. Everybody was actually uploading free performances, opera, ballet, what have you. But now, of course, it becomes another way of selling tickets online, so that will be a new way of presenting work as well in the future. It doesn't mean that the physical shows won't happen, but I think it means that maybe we are actually approaching a new audience, a completely new target audience, which are the online audience, as well as the physical audience. So there's something good that might come out of this, and I'm just hoping I'm right.
Wow, that's some very insightful points, and I agree with you. There are something positive that has come out of this, and that's very, very interesting. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, Gillian. And talking about the future and change, I'm delighted to introduce my guest to it, Peter Chatty. Peter, how are you? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Simon.
And so Peter is an entertainment media tech advisor, deal maker, a board member, futurist, and founder and chairman of Los Angeles-based Creative Media and Creative University. So Peter, in a nutshell, can you give us an overview of you and your career and what you focus on today?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Gillian, Hong Kong is one of my favorite cities. And when you think about what we're all experiencing now, that's such a shame that we cannot travel and experience others. And obviously that influences everything that we're talking about too. But before I get into my career, one thing that I completely agree with on what you said and on an opportunity, which is the online, interestingly, may give a wider audience a taste of certain areas of entertainment that they may not otherwise appreciate. And that may also drive them in to the venues themselves. So offline at the moments when they finally can get out into the world. So I think there is definitely that opportunity. So anyhow, but I think that's what everybody's experiencing, fully get it. So my career, I've spent about 30 years in the media and entertainment and tech world, split quite equally between traditional media, where I started off as an entertainment lawyer. Don't hold that against me. So I worked with movie clients, music clients. Then I transitioned into the major studios. So I was with Universal Studios for a number of years and actually did a lot of work in Asia for a number of years when I was at Universal. So I would travel back and forth to Japan, and we set up and negotiated the Universal Studios Japan project in Osaka. And then I spent a fair amount of time in Beijing, Singapore, scouting different areas. So I spent a lot of time doing business there when we could travel. And then after a number of years, then I moved into the internet-driven, tech-driven world of media tech. And I was fortunate to build and grow and then ultimately sell some nice exit with a great team of people for a couple different media tech companies that were on the bleeding edge. So one was essentially Spotify before Spotify. We were amongst the first that negotiated streaming licenses when nobody believed that streaming would be anything. And then after selling that company to Yahoo, then I was CEO of a company called SiteSpeed, which interestingly did this, what we're doing with Zoom. It was video chat when nobody believed in video chat back in 2005, 6, 7, and 8, before FaceTime, before Skype video. We believed. We ultimately sold the company to Logitech, had a nice exit there, but maybe we should have held on longer. But and then after that, after doing that, I ran another company in the video space, and I transitioned after doing that, because I'm always interested in trying new things. I became more of a deal maker, board member, entrepreneur, connector, and then just involved in a number of different projects. So getting to what I do today, I would say creative media, which is really my platform for doing a number of things that is supported by a small team. I have 3 segments. One segment is essentially my thought leadership, my writing. I've written several books. I continuously write for Billboard, Forbes, Variety magazine, TechCrunch. I try to write about where the world of media and entertainment is going. So not just the problems, but solutions. That's what I try to do. And then, you mentioned one thing, Simon, Creative University. It's a pure give back that I just started with my wife and actually kids, because I have a college student who's in home doing college from her bedroom. And she wants to get in the media business. My son's in high school, and we started something that's a pure give back to students who are passionate about the media and entertainment space, to bring them speakers like you, great speakers, but also immediate virtual mentorships. So that's like one segment. A second segment of what I do is I work with a small handful of companies who I believe are doing amazing things in innovation in the media tech world. And I'm a board member or an advisory board member. And then the third part of my business, Simon, is that I'm a deal maker. So I'm actively involved in a lot of M&A right now. That's acquisitions, and particularly in the music world, of intellectual property. So buying and selling of publishing rights, master use rights, which are a great solution for musicians right now who are in need of cash. But it's I'll talk more about it. I don't want to talk more about it right now, so we can get into other topics, but it's a fascinating space. And I was involved in facilitating the transactions with the rock group Boston, the band Air Supply, Count Basie, Devo, and Prince. So that's a little bit of my background.
Wow, that's incredibly impressive. And so just looking to the future and also linking the West and the East, how do you see the East and the West working better to collaborate in helping the world relate media-wise using new technology platforms? And are you involved in any particular projects in that space, or any other sort of related future-looking projects?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is that just collaboration itself, and it's so critical for people from every industry, every walk of life, to just spend time together to understand each other's cultures and understand and appreciate the differences in those cultures. And that is something, candidly, the United States is not very good at doing. It's pretty amazing to me that as I spend time and throughout my career, and I'm Hungarian, 100% Hungarian. I'm an immigrant. I think I appreciate diversity. That's part of my DNA. My wife is from Italy. She was born in Italy, raised in Italy. So we travel extensively. And I think that getting out of our territories is so important. So I think that's part of it. And even doing this, like the virtual think tanks, because we learn from each other. So I think that's an important piece of it. Certainly in terms of, if you're talking about global collaboration in the media and entertainment space, and I won't focus as much on directly what I'm involved in, but areas where I think are really important. I certainly think that overall, like security in terms of privacy data, making sure that we work as a global, in some sort of global forums to address these kind of security concerns that really impact all of us, especially in social media, I would say. And I think another part of it, getting to the security issue, is hacking. It's almost like having an Interpol for the internet. Something where you have a global organization that works together, creates standards, and helps identify when there's terrible things going on in the hacking side that cause real global issues. You know, we're in the midst of, we're nearing the end of a fundamentally critical election here in the United States. And as we speak, we have so much that's coming in that's from outside countries, as well as inside, by the way, but outside countries that are trying to influence and corrupt the election. And there must be better ways to be able to secure everybody's, just the truth, getting to the truth. And that is such a fundamentally obvious point, but such a difficult one, especially as we have the spread of social media. Look, social media is such a double-edged sword, and I'm best known as for being a digital media guy. But I gotta say that just addressing and regulating social media is such a fundamentally important thing, and I believe there's so much negative that comes with social media as well as positive. In fact, as I see it with my own kids, not just the obvious things of all this pressure that they see with their fellow kids, friends and others who are out there having the perfect lives, that's difficult enough. But when you have disinformation that's being used and openly used, and the social media platforms know that that's the case, much more regulation has to come into play. And so I think those, Simon, when you talk about global cooperation, global standards for security, global, and one final thing I'll mention that from a global collaboration standpoint, and this gets to these big gatekeepers of our lives now, like the Googles, like the Facebooks, that where we see finally some antitrust activity happening in the United States. And I'm all for free enterprise. I am very much for free enterprise, but at the same time, there's too much power being wielded, there's too much control, and that's impacting all the kinds of issues I'm talking about. So I think global cooperation and discussion and experimentation in terms of how best to regulate these industry behemoths.
Oh, and that, I agree with all of that. And it's interesting, I do a bit of work in brand valuation, and President Xi Jinping has actually done an exemplary job of, bringing the European ISO standards around brand valuation, and America is now kind of following the Chinese lead, which if you'd said that 10 years ago, people would have laughed at you, but the lead is really being taken, has been from the Chinese, from a brand valuation perspective. So it truly is, there's no reason why the world can't act more globally like that, So thanks very much, Peter. That was great.
No, absolutely.
Oh, thanks, Peter. And let's come to Gillian. What are your top 2 to 3 priorities for performing art-led changes going forward? Because that should be a lot of changes after recovery from COVID.
Well, I think after the recovery, like what I was saying before, that obviously we hope that things will go back to normal, but we don't really know what normal is anymore, and then how long will that take to go back to normal. And I think people will be much more cautious, of course, of what might be happening again. But like I said before, I don't think the online sort of performance opportunities would go away. I think people would see, that that's one way to actually reach a wider audience, and being able to perhaps give whatever message they have I think performing arts itself, of course, we know what it is. It's not just producing somebody else's play. We see a lot of new work, and a lot of new work right now is about COVID, about what's happening with people, and I hope that it's bringing people together as well. It's about humanity. It's about our environment. How are we going to cope with it? How are we going to live together? And that in a way is bringing people together to think together, and to actually come up with interesting artwork that touches people's lives much more than maybe when we were very content with being in a you know, a comfortable environment of Hong Kong, you know, when the economy was flourishing and we didn't have anything to think about. But now there's a lot that we are thinking about, that we're sitting at home and we are thinking. We have nothing better to do but to think, in a way, you know, when we were trapped when in the height of the COVID. But of course, now that we're coming back a little bit in Hong Kong and being a little bit more relaxed, it's not exactly relaxed, but at least we're coming back to some sense of life, then you would not just forget about you know, what's happened before. You would actually take that as an experience, and hopefully when it comes to performing arts or arts in general, that we're taking all that experience and we're generating something that is meaningful, much more meaningful, that we might have thought about, you know, before. And I really think that this should be bringing us closer together, whether it's East or West, and basically globally, that hopefully something like this should be actually bringing us closer, you know, to, you know, with a common enemy, which is COVID. But of course, in well, certain countries, we know what's happening now. It's not exactly going in that direction, but the hope is there, I think, and the opportunities are there.
Yeah,
That's a very interesting way and a very inspirational way to look at COVID and the opportunity that it creates. Thanks, Gillian.
I agree. So back to you, Peter. What would you say would be the top couple of priorities, or should be the top couple of priorities globally, to ensure the survival and continuing development of the media industry post-COVID? It's a big question.
Oh, but it's well, first of all, I vehemently agree with what Gillian was saying, where it is so critical. Well, first of all, it's critical for the East, for the West, to learn from the East and vice versa, what has worked to control this insidious, invisible enemy. And again, candidly, in this country, we are seeing the opposite. We are seeing growth, and it's because we have not learned, and the leadership, unfortunately, is where it is. And so it's critical for us to learn and see what's going on. But I vehemently agree that there's so much in the out-of-home entertainment market. It's been decimated. That's been in the music space, movie theaters, theater, as Gillian was saying, Broadway, everything. And so the first job one is to get safety and peace of mind and real safety, so that we can open up our venues, because our venues are not opening up. Understandably, they're not opening up because the spread is getting worse, not better, because we have not learned our lesson and people aren't taking it seriously, and the culture is just different here. So that's critical. And then I would say the second most important thing is governmental assistance to the media and entertainment space, because let's face it, things are very politically charged here right now. And so the priorities are led by support for a party. That's the reality. And because the media and entertainment world here, at least in the United States, is known as being associated primarily with one party, the assistance is not going to the media and entertainment world. And so you see the music world is decimated. Musicians cannot perform, and performing in venues is how 90% of them earn their living. And without that, they have nothing. Venue operators and promoters, they're completely shut down. And so independent venues around this country, many of them are not opening ever again, but no assistance is getting there. So I don't see that space of venues opening up in the United States anytime soon. In fact, the insiders tell me that large concerts, events like that aren't going to be at the earliest fall of next year of 2021, if not spring of 2022. So governmental assistance is absolutely necessary to save some of these industries, and especially the independent players in the industry. And that goes across the board for Broadway, as well as musicians, of course, the movie theaters, especially the independent movie theaters, the sports industry, we're seeing that, of course, too. So, those are the top two, I would say. And then the third is something I've already mentioned, which is antitrust and security and that kind of regulation.
Okay, no, that's a great answer. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And coming to Gillian for her final question. How do you see performing art organizations in the East and West collaborating better globally?
Well, that's a good question. I think we're always thinking of how, we're always looking at interdisciplinarity, how sort of different even types of entertainment can come together. But at the moment, of course, we have experienced even our students, even some of our alumni or those who are really not working in Hong Kong, performing artists, they were able to connect with, for instance, I know of a group that actually connected with a New York group, for instance, and they actually rehearsed a play online, and they actually played somehow, they're able to perform together online. Everybody is in their own home somehow, but it actually worked quite well. And we've seen a lot of these online performances of musicians, orchestras, playing different parts, but each part is, each instrument is actually each player is actually playing from home, but somehow they're able to play together online as an orchestra, or ballet dancers dancing together online. So this sort of thing has been so new to us. We've never seen this before, never, until, probably around, I would say maybe March, April, the last March or April. And so many people are trying so hard to actually keep it going, keep the energy going, keep the creativity going. And it has been quite successful. So that's actually one way of, at least during COVID, people are actually able to come together wherever you are. It actually, suddenly, there are no barriers anymore. We don't have to think of, we have to send 100 people over to Paris or something and, work with the Paris Opera or Paris, the ballet or etc. We can do it at home. So this is quite incredible, really. And that kind of connection is phenomenal. And because of that, I think people got to know each other, that they would never have thought that there's someone, miles and miles away would be performing with them together and be able to see each other as well. I think from this period, even if we do get back to normal, I think there's a lot of friendship that's been, formed over this period, and certainly, there'll be closer connections with people that you never thought about in countries you never thought of going. And I think after we do get back to normal, I would think that most of us would think of starting to visit each other and really looking at physical collaborations that we've never thought of before. I think that's quite exciting, really.
That's great.
Oh, I agree with you. That's really, really interesting and exciting. Thank you very much, Julie.
No, that's great. And just we're coming short on time, but just to wrap up, Peter, just maybe in 30 seconds or a minute, what could the West learn from the East, or the East learn from the West, do you think, during this period? Just sort of to wrap things up.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I think it is critical. The most important thing is that everything flows from human connection, everything, so the creativity, working together. And so everything that Gillian was saying cannot be emphasized enough. So that's one thing and fundamental thing. Business models is another thing, from the East to the West and West to the East. This gets into, again, something that Jillian was talking about. It's an experimentation time. It's massive experimentation. And we have more time to be able to do that. We can be more efficient doing that. I'll give you a couple examples of what that leads to. So because we cannot physically interact the way we could, artists are using live streaming, like what we're doing right now, to do the best they can. Jillian has spoken quite a bit about that. So the most obvious thing, I'll use musicians, is now they are doing this in not just a formal sense. There are actual concerts that are being live streamed from venues with nobody in them, with ticket prices that are charged. But then there's just somebody from their bedroom who's strumming a guitar and being able to have a closer, more authentic experience, in a strange way, more authentic, even though it's virtual. And then the super fan who loves that artist, this is an amazing thing. They get a window on the world. I want to mention one other thing before we break on this. So on live streaming, the most obvious thing is that people are charging a certain ticket price. Okay. Here's an interesting thing from outside of this country and still in the West, in Europe, but there's a DJ whose name is Boris Brescia. He's one of the world-renowned DJs. He's trying something just this weekend that I think is fascinating. Rather than charging, let's say $10, $20 for a live stream, what he's doing is that he's having 3 live streams, 3 concerts in 3 time zones around the world. So each area of the globe gets a concert all on the same day, and he's only charging €1 for it. €1. And so the interest there is, okay, more people, let's see how he does economically, but it's
great. Thanks, Peter. I'm going to have to stop us now because we've actually run out of time, but I just wanted to thank you both so much. It was a fascinating conversation, and thank you. It was wonderful. Great.